Hello again, and today we are going to be doing the filler blocks for the Kimberbell Mystery Quilt, the Mistletoe Mystery. So there are quite a few different blocks, and Kimberbell has you doing a few blocks each month so that you're not having a big backlog at the end and having to do a whole bunch of those. So they're filling those out a little bit throughout the year. It's actually a great idea. I always found that very frustrating at the end of the quilt to do all of the filler stuff. So I like the idea of doing a little bit here and a little bit there. I'm only going to do this one video on the filler blocks because the basics of it is all the same. So we're going to go through all of that. On the camera that we have over here, we've got instructions for the filler blocks, and then I have my pieces. I have a 7x12 hoop in the machine with no-show mesh in the hoop, standard bobbin, and at the moment I am threaded with ES700, so ES700, and that's going to be the red. So there's 2 red and there is 1 green. But if you look at the instructions, they have you doing the same quilt pattern for all 3. So I thought that I would maybe kind of multiply those out and then do a color sort so things go a little bit quickly. So I don't know if this is going to be the norm for this, or if this is just happens to be this month we're going to do all 3 patterns the same. Who knows? So on my USB at the machine, I have a folder for January, I have a folder for February, so on and so forth. And then inside of that, I have the actual block for January. It was the Christmas tree. And then I have all of the quilting patterns. And so the quilting patterns are given to you for each different month as well. So they're not all going to be exactly the same, but they are similar throughout the quilt. So I was talking about this with Carolyn, and, to say, I don't want to do that bow there. Unless you absolutely hate the bow and you don't want it in your quilt anywhere, then of course find something else that you like. But I don't know where these are going to go in the quilt. So for me to say, I think it'd be better if I put a reindeer in that one, unfortunately, it doesn't really work because I don't know where it's going to go. So I don't know what it's going to be sitting next to and all of those kinds of things. So I am not going to make changes to the filler blocks because I don't know where they're going to end up. So I'm going to hopefully, quote unquote, trust Kimberbell to have chosen the best design to put in those spots. And we're going to get started. So in that block, we are, this time around anyways, we have 3x3 pieces of fabric. So basically, if you are doing it in the hoop, you want that to be a little bit bigger, not the smaller size, just to make sure the quilting doesn't draw that in and make it too small. It's showing a pink thread. I didn't find a pink that I really liked. I suppose you could put pink in there, but I don't really like that. So I was going red, but, to each their own. By all means, do what you would like. Back over at the machine, I am going to need to program. So you can't see my screen at the moment. I'm just going to talk you through what I am doing on the screen. So for my January folder, I have all of those quilt files. Let's actually. And scrolling through all of those, they are generally done by size. So there's winter ones that have trees and the things that we used in the January block. And then if you keep going, you get into the bows. So on the instructions, it does tell you that you want the 2x2 horizontal design. The embroidery field will be 2.5 by 2.5. So I'm going to grab that 2x2 horizontal bow, and I'm going to set that to the screen. So on my screen, I now have one quilt square that's 2x2, technically 2.5 by 2.5. And I need to add that to my hoop. I am going to put the 7x12 box on the screen just to make sure that I stay within my actual field of space here. To do that, I'm going to hit the settings button. And on all of our machines, Brother and Baby Lock, it's going to take you right to the embroidery frame display, and you can choose the size from there. Once you have that, you'll see the size of that space on screen. And then we can hit the edit button. I'm going to use the 9 squares. And I am going to add one above and I'm going to add one below, and then I'm going to space those out to where they sit on the, I'm sorry, where they sit inside of the hoop, but not too close to one another, just to make sure there's plenty of space. So I'm going to use the arrows to space them out, and then I'm going to recenter. Once I'm all set with that, I'm going to hit embroidery. What that does for me is it color sorts automatically. So I'm going to get the 3 squares for the batting all in one shoot, in one stitch out there, instead of having to hit start and stop multiple times or working 1 square at a time. So here we go. I have that nice red thread in, so you guys will be able to see that nice and clear. Sans stabilizer jumping up. You want a video? Super big, huh? This is what makes it frustrating when you are doing a whole bunch of these at one time, because it tends to, you have to waste a lot of stabilizers. So if I were doing, multiple months, I could actually fill in every space that I possibly could. But I think I'm going to like this doing a little bit at a time instead of having to do them all at once. So got one more box to go. So that 9 square button on our edit page automatically color sorts. So you can see that it is continuing to sew and going through all 3 of color stop number 1. And all I have to do now is cover that up, and then it'll tack down my batting. So I've got a strip of batting I'm going to set here, and I'm going to completely cover all 3 of those squares up, and I'm going to tack those down. So it's going to do exactly what it did last time, but it's going to go around twice. And it's going to do that 3 times. Again, it's going to do, this is color stop number 2, basically, and it's going to do number 2, number 2, number 2, all in one shot, so I don't have to keep hitting start and stop over and over again. I did choose the red thread so that it shows, if it does show underneath at all, it won't show through that green, so I don't have green showing through my red. All right, once this is done, it's going to pause again. I'm going to trim away all of that excess. So we're going to pop over to our other camera so you can see that. And here we go. Let's get rid of that excess. Excuse me.
You might have to do some checking. I don't know.
All right, so I'm just going to tuck my scissors in there and get that in between section. And that final little bit there. So on the January block, I talked about jumping and skipping the next stitch, which is just going to show you where to put your fabrics. I'm going to actually do that on here. So I need to jump 3 stitches because it's going to do all 3 at the same time. So Over on my screen, I'm going to hit my needle plus minus button, and I'm going to arrow down 3 times. And now I'm back up at the top. But what I'm at is it's going to be the tack down instead of the placement line. So I'm just skipping that so that it's not quite as make sure I'm fairly well balanced on all sides. It does show to put these stripes going vertically. And finally, my green. All right, we're going to tack those down. And if I got them fairly well centered over there, there should be just a smidgen around the outside edges. So your piece should be larger than that tack down if you've cut it to the 3x3. And I am just doing a color check as it does this. And of course, my actual quilting, I am not going to do red here. I'm going to switch to the green thread right before I get here. All right, so we're tacked down. All we have left is the quilting. So once you are working on other size blocks, sometimes they're going to be rectangular. They might be 4x6. They might be 2x4. Who knows? But the steps are going to be the same. We're going to have our batting placement line, cover that up, trim your batting. You can skip the placement line if you're comfortable. If not, go ahead and stitch that. It'll tell you where to place your piece. Then the tack down line that's going to adhere all of your pieces. All that's left is the quilting. And I'm going to pay attention because I want to stop it after it stitches this one so I can switch to green thread for that last one there. So this is a pretty quick piece, and I actually really like the red. I think it's preferable for me anyways. I don't like it when you have quilting that you can't see it all. So this one, it's not like in your face, but at the same time, you can see what's going on, which I kind of like. All right, there's number 2, same color. You're not going to see this one quite as much. I suppose the lighter color might have popped off more, but I didn't like the pink personally. So, but I'm sure that surprises each and every one of you because of how much I love pink, right? And I just have my hand literally right here waiting on that start stop button. So as soon as it starts to move, I'm going to hit stop and it will not begin stitching over here. So I'm going to raise the foot because of course I need to unthread the machine, and with the foot down, it's going to hang on to that other thread, and I'm going to put that green, number 240 in. All right. With that threaded, I'm now going to do the final stitch, which is the final little bow down here. So once these are all done, I'm just going to trim and make a rectangle and keep them as one big piece. You know, a year is a really long time to hang on to a 2x2 piece of fabric. So just to play it safe, I'm going to leave them all attached to one another so that I don't have smaller pieces to lose. So we're going to pop over here, pop it out of the hoop. And like I said, I am going to just grab some scissors that I've got here, and I'm going to hang on to this as a piece. I'm not going to trim them all down. End of the year is far away still. So I am pretty sure I could lose them if I tried hard enough. So keeping them as a little bit larger piece will just help us hang on to them. And there are your filler blocks for January. So that is going to be done each time. We're going to have those blocks and they will tell us what fabrics to use. And they even gave you the literal quilting patterns. So you have a nice and easy finish there. So filler blocks are not difficult, but they will take you a little bit of time. Space them out. Don't try to do them all in one shot and it'll definitely make that a little bit easier. You guys have a good one. We'll see you next time. Bye.